Hello, friends. Happy to be back at your Vision God blog. And today I have a fantastic guest. It's Judit Tumpek, and she's an expert for cybersecurity insurances. She will tell us a lot about cybersecurity and insurances and why it is useful for you. Judit, the stage is yours. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, Georg. Thank you so much. I'm very delighted to be here, and I hope I will contribute to your amazing video series. Judith is my name. I'm a lawyer and an insurance and risk specialist. My main work areas are liability, financial, crime, and cyber risks of large entities and corporate groups, especially working internationally, but also of organizations in the public sector. I've been working for insurance broker companies for 10 years now. I've been advising these firms on those risks, how to insure them, advising CEOs, CFOs, and working also, especially in cyber, with CISOs together. Insurance broker firms are independent from insurance companies. We are also helping to our clients in case of a claim. We fight for the coverage. We are negotiating with the insurance companies. I've been working actually in these special lines with the whole European insurance market together. To the lines briefly, so liability is the legal risk of a company, a general liability, so especially when a company causes loss or damage by a third party, bodily injuries or property damages. By financial losses, we are talking mostly of professional liability, or if a criminal act has been caused to a company by the employee or from a third party, or, for example, a very interesting thing, the liability of directors and officers, because in some cases they are liable with their own asset and you can insure this risk. And for example, a W&I for mergers and acquisitions, you can some transactional risk insure. And in the end, we are coming to cyber, which is the main topic for today. Cybersecurity or cyber risk insurance has actually more or less the same history or time period with the development of cyber risks, and actually also with my career in this topic, because the first policy was placed in Germany in 2011. 2013 is the year when the first time cyber risks were mentioned as the top 10 risk or among the top 10 risks by Allianz Risk Barometer. And 2015 was the year when I started my career in the insurance industry. Previously, my focus was on tort law and criminal law during my studies and also working for different law offices. This legal background helped me a lot by understanding the cyber risks because this is not only a technical issue. Today, I will also show the comprehensive or the mindset you need to handle comprehensively those risks. So also we see now that the regulations, the cybersecurity is getting be a very regulated field, especially in Europe. This is actually also my vision and my mission to help organizations to strengthen their cyber defense strategy.
Wow, that's a lot. So you can combine legal, insurance, and cybersecurity.
Yes, basically, but this is actually I appel by my clients. It's very interesting and important to use the synergies of the different areas. Cyber risks and cybersecurity and cyber insurance are interdisciplinary fields. So the collaboration of different stakeholders is very important. You can, or the organizations can save time and costs by using these synergy effects. And I only brought for today 2 slides. And if you want, I can show you how I understand comprehensive cyber risk management and also where is the role of the cyber insurance in this risk management, because I feel that still there is a misconception, and I have a lot of discussion with cybersecurity community, with the service providers in prevention, and it should be not a competition. Those insurance does not replace the prevention. Both are very important. For example, in the healthcare system, good doctor would never recommend not to have an insurance. And the health insurance would not say that the prevention or checkups or to go to the doctor or to be healthy is not necessary. But in the non-life risks, I don't see such an intensive interaction between prevention and risk transfer.
This is a fantastic explanation, Judith. So the people will understand it very good if you explain it with health. So it's good going to a doctor who can help and also to prevent, but also the health insurance, it's very important. Thanks for the explanation. That's fantastic. And if you want to get such explanations and more, click the subscribe button below, and then you will get the latest news here at yourvision.blog. Judith, please share your decks. That's really interesting.
You can see here 4 pillars of the risk management, and I have also a second slide which will be very similar to that. I just want to demonstrate how insurance is developing and getting more part of the entire risk management and is important to consider not only in the 4th pillar, as you can see here in this slide, but also alongside the risk management. But just to understand, because I think this basic understanding can help also a lot by implement a good defense strategy. So the first pillar is actually the awareness and the identification. What is cyber risk? Actually, this is already a huge topic because everything related, all the risks related to using the cyberspace, to the digitalization, not only IT, but also operational technology and also the legal requirements. So to understand for an organization what is the risk, the organization need discussions on that to understand the different threats and qualify and then in the end quantify the business risk for this special company. The second pillar is the prevention. Actually, this is the first line of defense. If I understand the threats, if I understand the business impact on my organization, I can set up adequate prevention measurements. These are actually the technical and organizational security measurements. It's very important to adapt in these business procedures, not just have policies on that, and also continually monitor that because it's a very fast changing area, especially with using modern technology and artificial intelligence. Human risk I highlighted here because you can have the best technical defense. There will be always the risk factor human error, which needs to raise the awareness and train employees and actually all individuals regularly. So the third pillar is reaction and loss mitigation, where you have actually the incident response, the crisis management. Here the challenge is that in case of for example, a ransomware attack, you need to handle very fast and under pressure, and you need different types of services. And when you cannot avoid the financial impact, in the end, there is a financial safeguard, which can be your reserve, an establishment of reserves, or accepting these costs. But also you can transfer this risk, these losses to an insurance, and there is the cyber insurance for. So this is actually the last line of defense. And very briefly, I will not explain it in detail. I will go to the second part because it's really similar. But now I would like to explain how insurance only can contribute in the first and second and third pillars of the risk management. However, these steps, which I already mentioned, are independently from the insurance very important to consider. But when you consider already at the beginning the cyber insurance, the insurances have already a little bit of statistics, benchmarks, so they can help organizations to figure out what can be the business impact, what is the worst case scenario, to help understand what is the supply chain risk. There are very useful tools to calculate the risk and also to raise awareness of the potential consequences of a cyber incident. Also, while analyzing the coverage, when I am talking about what is covered, I have the experience that in many cases, companies telling me that, oh, I didn't think about this. It's very interesting. And yes, it's actually a danger also for our organizations. And the same is for proactive measurements, for the prevention, for the cyber insurance. You need to fill out a questionnaire. But this questionnaire is a risk dialogue, so you will get feedback from the insurance, and also this is a self-assessment. It's very useful because it's already feedback. What is the maturity level of the organizations? Many insurance companies provide also access to service providers, so they really want to help prevent or raise the security of the firms. And in the end, this is also the interest of insurance companies to avoid losses. And when we are coming to the last two pillars, these are already coverages of the cyber insurance contracts. So these are already services and payments of an insurance contract. The third one is very important because, as I mentioned, organizations need to react under pressure. And the problem is that when you want to reach out for a crisis manager or for a forensic company, you will probably face challenges by availability or accessibility because there are not so much companies they can help you immediately. Also, doing the PR or the communication services or the legal notifications. So this is a package where insurance companies can help providing these services in the incidents management. The risk transfer, as I mentioned, it's already about the remaining risks, so the losses, which I can explain briefly the coverage if you want. Let's see. But actually, the most types of the costs and the losses an insurance coverage can cover. Yes,
So if there is a problem in a company who have a problem, it is also possible to contact you. You can help them and give them the right contacts. Contact Judit via LinkedIn. She will help you.
Yes, so basically, as I mentioned, you need to differentiate between insurance companies and insurance broker firms. But yes, indeed, I have even experience with companies they didn't have insurance coverage and they were in crisis because there was a ransomware attack or an attack on the organization. And they even reached out to me to ask if I can recommend crisis manager or someone who will be able to negotiate with the criminals, because in a ransomware attack, this is also part of the game, to get more time and to negotiate and to see which kind of criminal groups are on the other side. Also, as I mentioned in forensics, the investigation, what happened by huge organizations, it's not just easy to see where is data come from, what has happened. So usually we see days and even weeks working professionals on under high pressure to figure out how to contain the damage.
Thanks a lot. That's great. You have shown what are the possibilities in cybersecurity, insurance, and management. Let's do a little excursus in the history and the development of cyber insurance market.
Yes, so
Can you give us a little insight in this, please?
Yes, so as I mentioned, is a very new line of business of insurance. And in this decade, more or less, we have seen a lot of ups and downs and changes and even a very hard market situation. You need to understand that in the first 3, 4, 5 years, so before the pandemic situation, insurance companies provided coverage without a deep risk assessment, and they didn't have the statistics, the mathematics on cyber insurance because there were no claims before. And when the insurance had already books before the pandemic situation, then in 2020, globally, firms needed to go online and to work remotely, which contributed a lot to increase the cyber risk. And a lot of cyber claims happened also by companies they were already insured. So when insurance companies faced that they need to pay, and then they paid, because this is also sometimes an objection I hear, that insurance companies don't pay. There were coverage for those claims, they needed to pay, and they need to have restrictions on the coverage conditions and also increase the premiums. Otherwise, they will not be able to work profitable. They will generate losses. So then it started. We have in this year, so 2020, 21, also in Austria, we saw big ransomware attacks with claims of millions of euros by losses. And in the end, it became to the point that there were a lot of insurance companies, they didn't want to sign cyber risks. Right now, today, we can see that we are in an easing phase. So now the conditions are getting again better and the premiums are not increasing so fast than in this period. We see that more or less 50% of companies are or have insurance coverages, which means that still a lot of companies are considering to buy or to purchase a contract or not. And also, it's very interesting because the companies are, most of them already have at least one experience with a bigger impact. So we see more or less 20% yearly growth in the insurance premium. So all in all, what does it mean? Organizations consider more and more the cyber insurance, but they are also not always decided on buying a product, which is also very important. This is not a product, this is a civil contract. This is an agreement between insured and insurance company. So I just can recommend to have a look at the terms and conditions, to negotiate it, to understand the clauses and also the exclusions, because yes, it's not an all risk insurance, so you will have always exclusions. And additionally, it's very important to understand that in the last years, there are also new players in the market and new companies focused on cyber risk insurance, expecting the growth and expecting to build a book. This is actually a chance to companies, but I recommend to be very careful. And it should be actually not a product, but an appropriate tailor-made contract as a part of your risk management of your individual needs. And to get an advice how to insure these risks is still very important because of the nature of the risk, which, as I mentioned already, not so evident what kind of threats we have and what kind of impacts they can cause.
Absolutely.
Judith, after the look back into the history, what are the benefits of insurance contracts in case of a claim? What are the coverages? What is needed?
Cyber insurance provides financial protection and support to organizations as a result against losses resulting from cyber events, cyber attacks, data breaches, system failures, or even human errors. Terms and conditions differ between different insurance providers. There is no common wording in place. But typically, a cyber insurance includes first party coverages and third party liability coverages, which are the following liabilities in a summary. First party coverage, first party losses are the own direct losses of the insured based on a ransomware attack or a cyber incident, data breach, and there are mostly expenses and costs associated to different activities they need to in place. For example, the incident response, forensic investigation, but also important part is the data recovery and system restoration, a technical review, and in some cases even the betterment cost. For the future. Also, GDPR, data breaches related notifications are covered, and the legal expenses in the regulatory. And in some countries, even the legal fees are insured. And to avoid the reputational damages, also public relation efforts are covered. For manufacturing, producing, or even servicing firms, probably the most important part of the coverage is the business interruption, cyber business interruption cover. Traditionally, business interruption coverages, insurance coverages, will need to have a property damage. In this case, by cyber, there is no need for that. Losses directly coming from a cyber event, they lead to business interruption, so downtime, so an interruption of the operation of the company can be covered. So basically the income loss, the net income loss, and the additional operational costs incurred to minimize this downtime. For example, overtime labor or outsourcing services. Yes, when we come to the cybercrime activities, probably the most interesting part is the cyber extortion. Cyber extortion is a cybercrime where criminals threaten to damage, disrupt, or disclose of data, sensitive data, unless their demand is met, usually by payment of ransom, payment of crypto. And in ransomware attacks, hackers encrypt data and they demand for the description key the money. Here, expenses all around the ransom demand are covered. The ransom payment itself is still insurable, however, with restrictions and with limits. And there are discussions around this topic, of course, because it can be understood as support of criminal activities. And it should be also only the ultima ratio. It should be only paid if there is no other possibility to recover the data. Then cyber theft and cyber fraud, fraudulent acts. Here, the assets of the company are stolen, and in this case, some cybercrime coverages can help. Basically, because of the increasing risk of social engineering, it's very important to have coverage against fraudulent acts. Criminals use a lot of techniques, modern techniques of artificial intelligence, generative, agentic AI. They can do profiling, so actually it's easy to fall to a scam. And for these fraudulent acts, there are specific coverages. And in the end, we have also the third party liability loss coverage, where losses or when claims made or legal lawsuits brought from third parties against the insured are covered, which means that the loss is by a third party, by a client, or by the business partner, or by an external or individual, especially by data breaches. It can be the compromising of personal data or compromising of confidential information, business information. Also, system failure caused losses by a third party, or failure to prevent unauthorized access and disclosure of data. So basically here, when there is an unfounded claim, insurer will provide the defense costs, and by legitimate claims, also the indemnification and the legal costs.
Wow, that's very detailed. Thanks a lot, Judith. You told us a lot about the benefits of doing the insurance contract and why it is important. But how do you design an insurance contract in the right way? So, what are the pitfalls and the challenges here?
By designing of an insurance contract, there are a few steps, or it's important to take into consideration some few steps in order to avoid the surprise in the case of a claim. Cyber insurance contracts are civil contractual agreements between insured and insurance. So there is, most of the cases, there is possibility to negotiate on this coverage and to include additional clauses, probably for additional premium, and by demonstrating a robust cybersecurity control. but it's possible. It is also not an all-risk contract. It's important to know because many people think that, and also some players in the insurance market say that it's a coverage for all risk in the all cyber risks, but there are restrictions by definitions, and also there are explicit exclusions, and it's important to understand those. For example, computer system can be understood as on-premise data and systems, and also as cloud systems, informational technology, or operational technology, which is the control and monitor of physical devices and progresses. And you need to assure that this type of systems are also covered, but data as well can be understood as personal data or confidential information. There are many definitions, and therefore it's important to get an advice on the coverage based on the own cyber risk management of the organization, or own cyber risk management strategy. Organizations should review the threats insured in the contract, and also based on that they should choose the limit of liability, the sublimits, and the deductible based on their own risk management strategy. For manufacturing companies, probably it will be important to have a full business interruption coverage without restrictions, operating in the B2B business. Meanwhile, for example, in the B2C business, the coverage of personal data or data breaches related coverages are more important. So tools and benchmarks of the insurer can help on define and calculate the limit needed. And we can say that the cyber losses are mostly, or we are talking about the severity of the losses. So there are no frequent losses in this area. Therefore, to choose for a higher deductible can be a strategy in order to save a premium. And at the end, I always discuss with my clients the exclusions, the explicit exclusions, which are mostly on one page in the insurance contract. And it's important to understand that, for example, it's really a coverage for financial losses. So bodily injuries, property damages are not covered, but also to differentiate between what is willful act, willing intention of the company or intention of the employee, because in some cases you can include intentional acts of an employee. And for example, there is a discussion, a very interesting topic is what is war exclusion. And for example, infrastructure blackouts are also not covered. To conduct the mindset of the client, it's very important to talk about this. And also, the last topic is the last important topic is the questionnaire. It's important to fill the questionnaire fully and truthfully out, because in case of a claim, the insurer will review those security measurements. And yes, this is something the organization is obliged to comply. So if there are questions or something is not possible, it's better to talk about this and to give a feedback and maybe implement alternative workarounds.
And you did how much time should the companies plan to get a good insurance coverage?
It depends on the size and the business of the insured, but yes, it's important to get advice and to discuss all these topics, which can usually take 1 to 2 months by bigger organizations. Of course, we hear now a lot of rapid solutions, so theoretically it's also possible to get tomorrow a coverage, but it depends really on the size, because I will tell you later also on the minimum requirements that it's a very complex landscape, and from entire risk dialogues to some questions on the security control, we see different possibilities. So yes, from 2 days to 2 months.
Mhm. So everything is possible. There are also packages available, but it is very important to know what you buy. It's like buying running shoes. You can buy a running shoe very quick, but if it doesn't fit, it's useless. So it's very important to get a good consultant like you did. You can combine the legal, the technical, cybersecurity, and also the insurance knowledge. And this is very important. That's a big help for the companies.
I guess so. I hope so. And I see actually the needs of the collaboration of the different stakeholders. And I am talking to CEOs, to CFOs, and the CISOs. And I can see that within one organization, even there are many aspects and different understanding about the risk. And it is a good experience when I can see that I can bring those people together and basically in the end find out a good solution where everybody is happy in the best cases.
That's a lot of information, a lot of education for the companies and the people, what is needed. And if you get informed about the latest trends, just click the subscribe button here down. And also at yourvision.blog, click on the newsletter that you get unregularly information in your inbox. And Judith, why are you doing that? What is your vision?
As a result of the rapid technological development and the integration of digitalization and artificial intelligence into all areas of our life, I am convinced that cyber risks will remain one of the biggest challenges in the next decades, including the environmental footprint of data centers required for this immense development. And my responsibilities have enabled me to gain a deeper understanding of the needs of various stakeholders in the fight against the cyber threat and also in the improvement of the maturity level of the cyber security. So I'm committed to improving the cyber resilience and shaping the cyber defense strategy of organizations and thereby of the economy by building bridges and facilitating the communication between different involved parties. I also see that cybersecurity is an increasingly regulated field where the legal requirements need to be clearly understood and implemented in a pragmatical way and in a time and cost effective manner where I really hope and I'm convinced that I can contribute and translate the requirements, the legal requirements, but also the requirements of the insurance, because this is also valid for the insurance contract. It makes only sense to have a coverage if there is a safety net in the worst case scenario in case of a claim. So I believe that through this collaboration, it will be possible to strengthen the safe cyberspace. We have a strong responsibilities regarding on how and where we conduct the technical development in the technological innovation to chances or to more risks. And if you allow me, I would like also at the end emphasize the generative AI related risks, especially for women, because especially for them we see quite dangerous development. Meanwhile, more than 90% of the increasingly rapidly increasing deepfake videos are used in non-consensual sexual abusive way. More than 99% of the victims are women. And at the same time, the ILO, the International Labour Organization, says that in Europe, almost 40% of the female dominated jobs are at risk of being replaced by artificial intelligence, by man-dominated jobs, it's only to this relation, I will say only 26%. And by newly created jobs, like for example, the tech jobs, the tech-related jobs, cybersecurity, women only make 20 to 30% of the workforce. I just want to highlight that we need an awareness on those risks, and we have a social responsibility, and there is much work to be done. And I'm happy to contribute on this.
Oh, yes, that's very important. And thanks for your insights about your vision. That's very important. And yes, you can combine the legal, the tech, and also the insurance knowledge, and to help here the companies to find the right way. So we spoke now that it is very important to have a good insurance coverage, but are all companies insurable?
No. And unfortunately, not only companies are insurable, because insurance companies require some minimum security controls, security measurements, which is actually also a good thing, because the aim is to raise the awareness and the cyber defense, to raise the cyber defense level. But the requirements, so there are minimum requirements, and it depends on the size and on the business of the insured, and on the risk appetite, and on the claims experience of the insurer. From the complex risk dialogues to the products with some questions, we see different solutions. What I can say, there is not a standard, or there is no certification which is standard, which is accepted automatically. So insurer will always ask for the operation of the business, and based on that they will figure out which questions they need. But as I told you, there are also very automatized products with only some questions. In this case, the questions focus the probably entry points. So then they pick up really the most important security measures, which can really avoid a cyber attack, or the impacts of a cyber incident can contain. When I should choose one of the most important
Please.
measures, I would say awareness trainings, which is actually an organizational measurement. Even the best technical security measures cannot avoid human error. This is very interesting that individuals make decisions, like over 30,000 decisions in a day, and I think more or less 80% of these decisions are conducted by the subconscious, which means that even the very intelligent people can fall for a scam, because there are really very good techniques, and the social engineering, which means manipulating people to act, to do something, or to pay money, so actually to act where people can, or where the criminals can benefit of. So in these cases, it's very important to have bigger awareness, and awareness trainings can contribute a lot. So this is one of the most important thing. On the technical side, based on my claims experiences, I have handled huge claims and struggled with organizations, because you need to imagine that by a huge organization where even there are entities in other countries, and a producing firm where the IT is centralized, and in the end there is a ransomware attack, it can cause a damage where people are working on that during months. And the most important thing, how to recover the data and restore the system. And therefore having a good backup strategy is key. So having the offline backup or immutable backup, and tested backups. So the insurers will also see that these backups will work in case of a claim, because we have also seen incidents where there were kind of backups, but you couldn't use it, or they were also infected. So the hackers also got access to the backups. And other than that, there are a lot of measurements and best practices can be considered, and also the requirements of the upcoming laws in the cybersecurity can help, because the requirements are actually very good security measurements. For example, the multi-factor authentication or patch management, which means that to install the updates in time, if it's very important, and also email security or encryption, or for example, for bigger companies to have a business continuity plan, or general how to deal with cyber incidents. And of course, managed services and penetration test and red teaming, they can help a lot and contribute on the cybersecurity maturity level. So yes, if you can show up these measurements, definitely insurer will, or it will be easier to find the appropriate insurance contract. So everything which lead to reduce the vulnerabilities.
Oh, yes, there are a lot of new measurements the companies have to take care about it. And yeah, and a lot of new KPIs are coming to the companies. And that's very important to take care of it. So, Judith, you also mentioned a lot about the challenges of the future, the impact of AI and agentic AI, what will come to us, what we will face. And where do you think it is most important to build bridges here? You think it is between IT and C-level, or between C-level and insurance broker and companies? What do you think is very important? Where do people have to communicate and talk about it?
What I see now is that many stakeholders talk about the risks and the prevention, but in many cases not together, which means therefore they can also not use synergies. For example, the insurance it's more a topic for the CEOs, because they know, or the risk manager officers or people, they are dealing with the risks, with all kind risks of the company. They know that there is also possibility to have an insurance contract. But in the same time, probably the CISOs, they are talking more with security service providers, and there are still many objections against insurance, because there are myths that insurance does not pay, and there are many requirements organizations cannot comply. And this is not true. But the problem is that these kind of stakeholders talk not to each other. So, in my point of view, it's as an insurance specialist and a lawyer, for me, it's very important to talk with the CISO, to talk with the CEO and with the CISO, and to take a look and to understand their risk management strategy. And if I can understand it, then I can sell it to the insurers, I can find an appropriate coverage. And in this procedure, we can already consider also the legal requirements, because if we know that the company falls underneath two, then there are already measurements there to comply, and these measurements will help also from the insurance perspectives. And on the same times, if there is a budget for the company for security measurement, then it's important that the CISO or the IT officer will spend this money especially for these measurements, because then with these measurements we'll be able to comply in different perspectives or fulfill different requirements, and the same time to have a good prevention strategy. So all in all, I think so it's very important to have all these kind of services. And I think I talk a lot about it, but we wish a little bit more that also cybersecurity service providers highlight that for the risk transfer, for the worst case scenario, for the remaining risks, yes, insurance can be a good solution and a good, not alternative, but actually the solution.
In combination, that's important. And there are a lot of good measurements already here. You can follow these too. If there is a company who doesn't have a CISO, just follow the rules of CIS2. And yeah, it helps a lot for prevention. And if there are questions about anything with insurance, just ask Judith, and she is there and she will help you and give you good advice. Thanks a lot, Judith. That was really fantastic, really great insights in this very important topic, not only to prevent, also to get covered if there will come up a big problem. The contacts of Judith are here below. You will find them. If you have any questions, just contact her and she will help. Thanks a lot for the great insights, Judith. This helps really a lot for the people and for the companies. Before we finish, just a very quick advice for the people here.
Well, my advice is all that glitters is not always gold, which means have a critical mindset and be carefully. And sometimes services or solutions less a little bit more money, but they provide much more services. So for me, it is a red flag if someone is saying everything is covered, it's the best product, it's amazing. So be careful and get an advice from specialists.
That's really good. And not to click on every email which looks very glitterous. That's very good. Thanks a lot, Judith, for that. This is really fantastic to have you, and thanks for all your advices. See you soon and have a great day.
Thank you. Bye bye.